There we go. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Phil Robinson with the Unfiltered Truth, flying solo today. We'll get a call in later from my guy Mario Tovar from the Raider Ramble, checking in from the East West Shrine game. We're gonna cover the elephant in the room and talk about where we go from here. Brady retires. What's left? Who's out there? What are the Raiders doing? I don't know, but we'll break it down and think about it and go over it all on the Unfiltered Truth. Start the show.
Set your face on fire. Let's get higher. Make it move, make it groove. Make it move, make it groove. Make it move, make it I'ma make it dirt. I'ma make it dirt. I'ma make it dirt. I'ma make it dirt. I'ma make it dirt.
First and foremost, before I bring on my guest, I want to give a shout out to Sideline Sports Network. We are all going to be in the house for Radio Row and the Super Bowl in Arizona starting Sunday. I'll be leaving Thursday, but they'll be rocking all the way through the big game. So we are looking to get out there, put the unfiltered truth out there on the map, pass out some of these business cards I just ordered so that we can help spread and grow. But now I have from the Raider Ramble, Mario Tovar reporting from the Shrine Bowl. Hefe, what's good?
What's going on, man? What's up?
Oh, just doing a show over here by myself, looking at the beautiful hotel room you got it back there. Hoping you can share some of your Shrine Bowl knowledge.
It's been a great experience, Obviously, sort of like the combine last year for me, it was very much a learning experience, But I will say this for any aspiring writers, podcasters, people who really want to take their game to the next level, and want to really take that serious. The level of access here at the Shrine Bowl is amazing. At one point you're rubbing shoulders with some of the top people in the NFL. Like for my case, I was rubbing shoulders with Josh McDaniels right next to me, or on Sunday's practice. I'm sure we'll get to that. Things like that. It's been a great experience. I definitely recommend, even you, like anybody, who's really taking this serious. It's a great experience. Right now, we're over here at the Luxor. You had Nate Burleson inducted into the Shrine Bowl Hall of Fame. Gave a speech, to the players, to the alumni and stuff and all that. So it's been a great experience, man. Can't no zero complaints.
No, I'm glad. One of these days I'm going to get out there to it. I wanted to do the Senior Bowl, but I've heard that the access is not as good as it used to be unless you're one of the top guys. I know my guy Tony was out there at the Shrine Bowl with you. I don't know if you ran across him yet, but you were also at the NFLPA Bowl last week as well.
Yeah, that was the previous week. Yeah, I went to one of their practices just to more than anything, just dip my toes and see what the experience is like. It's definitely a lot like the Shrine Bowl. I would just dare say maybe not as much media coverage. Definitely a lot more under the radar. That doesn't devalue the players or anything by any means, but more so that's just the coverage. You definitely had NFL Network on site, things like that. But I mean, it's definitely more for you're really digging deep into the prospects. Who I did see? I hadn't told anybody yet. I was right next to Reggie McKenzie. That was quite the experience right there. Oh yeah, man. He's looking good these days. Drop about half the weight. I was like, oh wow, he's looking sharp, man. And he was decked out in his SC gear. Obviously, he's an SC guy. I was tempted to ask him about what happened with Khalil, but I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna keep that to myself. Maybe next year. From what I understand, he's there pretty much every year. So we'll see what happens next year. Maybe we can find out what really happened there next year.
No, I could tell you what happened there. I was in the room with him when he broke it down to Mark. But I can tell you what happened there. But It's not real. That's pretty academic. But to the business at hand, now that we've talked about the experience, who could you see out there that can help this football team? That being the Las Vegas Raiders. For those who don't know, that we on the Unfiltered Truth, we cover the Las Vegas Raiders over here and bring Raider Nation everything that they need to know because they deserve better.
A bunch of the receivers, man, looked good, especially yesterday at the Raiders facility. Nada from Clemson, he looked really good, man. Then you also had we talked to Flowers actually today at the media day, and
Hmm.
he said he's talked to the Raiders extensively. I mean, at the end of the day, look, a lot of these guys probably did talk to the Raiders extensively, but he did say, hey, good vibes, and he definitely got a good feel from them. And I did ask him how does he project into the next level. Obviously, the Raiders need a return man. He's fast. So hey, that could be a solid pickup right there. On Sunday, I was talking to. I think I'm pretty sure I told you I was talking to a little bit to Raiders general manager Dave Ziegler, and he gave me a couple names, and I was actually talking to him about the edge rusher from Pitt, Baldonado, and apparently
Hmm.
he's drew a lot of attention too. And you also have the kid Jose from Eastern Michigan in the total swoop. And I did talk to him. I was like, hey, what would it be like to play? Obviously, Max Crosby. He's like, hey man, Max is pretty much a god now at Eastern Michigan. Like he's the man. He's the man. But more so than that, not just because he's from Eastern Michigan, but he really does look like a potential breakout player, solid prospect, and I mean, obviously he did say, I think more so from a fan perspective, he was just hey, it'd be a dream come true to play opposite of Max, So there's that, and it's funny that after I talked to him, a couple of the other Raiders writers did speak to him too, and they got the similar impression that he really was lighting it up at practice. So we'll see what happens tomorrow too. See what kind of performance he has. I know obviously tomorrow is more of a all-star game, but these guys really did kill it in practice.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And what's
I don't know
the
if you
what
can
are
hear
the
that. I don't know if you can hear the music in the background, man. It's turning into a party over here.
Oh, is that what it is? I was trying to figure out
Oh
what all that noise was, but I know you're out there in Vegas, and what happens in Vegas stays there.
yeah.
So
Nah,
who
come
knows?
on. Nah. No, I'm spoken for, Hefe. I'm
Right,
spoken for.
right.
But it's been, but on a personal note, though, it's really been great out here, man. It's been a tremendous experience connecting with a lot of fellow Raiders content creators, and nothing but respect and love. And it's been a great experience. And definitely, like I said, hopefully you can make it out here next year. Maybe we can make it happen.
No, I'm gonna have to. You bumped into both general managers and the. Have you seen any of the coach? You said you saw Josh McDaniels out there. Well, I know that was probably a separate conversation, but
Yeah, he was definitely very active. He was pretty, but the thing was he wasn't very I would say available. He was really attached at the hip. Obviously, with that picture I posted, he was pretty much with Bill the whole time. What they
mhm.
were talking about, I mean, who knows? Probably shooting the shit, or who knows? Maybe talking about a potential deal. But they were pretty much tight at the hip at the whole time. But he was there, very active. Ziegler too, the whole scouting department. I don't know I told you like Sunday morning, the first practice when I got there I was talking about a couple of prospects to this, young guy next to me. I didn't realize he was decked out in Raiders gear, and all of a sudden, his badge, and I couldn't figure out who it was. He walks away, and obviously introduced myself, Mario Tovar, Mario Rambo. He gave me a little smirk, like, "Hey, I know who you are, man." I was like, "Okay, cool." He walked away, and before I know it, I come to realize one of the guys just told me, he's like, "You know who you were talking to?" He's like, "You were talking to the assistant general manager of the Raiders." I was like, "Oh man!" So experiences like that, man, are definitely what makes this work out. You know what I'm saying? And it goes to the point that you just said too, the level of access. For example, if you cover the Falcons, man, this was a gold mine this week. Everybody from the Falcons was here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The brass, everybody, and so it's like things like that. Obviously we'll see who's going to be next year. Obviously this year it was a lot of Patriots and a lot of Falcons, but you know, obviously McDaniels and Ziegler went home with their boys here in Vegas, but yeah.
No, for sure, and that was one of the things I was curious about as we go through this bowl all star game stuff with the practices. I was just curious to see how they were going about their rounds, who was going to be where on what day, or that you saw them there at in Las Vegas at headquarters, who made it out to the Senior Bowl. I know they've got some targets out there, but then they don't necessarily need to go out there because they got Patrick Graham coaching one of the teams, and then I think they got another one of their defensive line coaches on the other side. So they're
Mhm.
covering both sides of the Senior Bowl, and it's good
And
to
then there
see
was a
that
bunch
they're
of
out there
guys.
getting.
I'm pretty sure you saw the news. There was a bunch of guys that after one day of practice, they actually took off. They actually went to Mobile. So there was
Mhm,
a few guys that actually got, and then there was actually a few guys that performed so well before I got here, Friday, Saturday, and then into Sunday. They kind of just after that they just chilled. You just saw them. Like at Raiders HQ, a lot of them were already like in sweats. Not
mhm,
necessarily. They probably did their thing. The thing too, though, was I should mention on Monday it was raining, man, and it was like 30 degrees out here. Like it
Woo,
was like, oh yeah, it was bad. And most of us out there, I mean, a lot of guys, stayed out there for most of the practice, but most of us ducked out after 15, 20 minutes, man. Like I love what I do, but I'm not trying to catch an pneumonia, Phil. You know what I mean? Like it's no, and I think if I'm not mistaken, if you were to check the records of a bunch of the guys did not participate. Obviously, I mean, some of these guys, this is their probably going to be their only chance to show what they got. But then there's a few of them that are like, hey, I'm not trying to risk my serious injury out here because
mhm.
it was pretty bad. Weather was ugly, man, on Monday. I'm not even joking. All jokes aside, but it was pretty bad on Monday.
Right. No, I had heard about that, and that makes sense. You don't go out there and you don't run around and do anything in bad weather, especially with as much on the line as they do
Yeah.
at this time of year, because undoubtedly between now and the combine, somebody's going to be out here trying to do everything they can and fool around and hurt themselves and cost themselves millions. So I
Hmm.
get it. I totally get it. And it's good to see that they are moving the guys from the NFLPA through the process and pipelines to get them to the Senior Bowl, at least the better talent. Uh, no, that's excellent and all good stuff. And so you said the game. No, the game's not tomorrow. What's going on tomorrow again?
So tomorrow's the game. Tomorrow
Tomorrow
evening,
is the
5:30.
game.
Yeah, yeah. Today we had the media day, which I mean, it's probably more for like the Shrine people, the actual Shrine Bowl, media
Hmm.
and stuff like that, than sort of NFL. But you still had a lot of like different guys. You had the guys from like NBC Sports, Q Myers, Raider Nation Radio. Got to meet him, man. He's a great guy, great
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Obviously, he's very familiar with our work right away.
Hmm.
He's like, I know who you are, man. And it was a pleasure to meet him, man. He's a real humble dude, and I think he really inspires a lot of us independent folks, I guess you could say, right? Like, hey, like keep grinding, keep doing your thing, you can make it, man. He started like old banter back in the day. Oh, he's one of the OGs, and now
Long
look at
time
him,
ago. Yeah,
and now look
long
at him, and
time.
now look, yeah, and now look at him, man. So, like I said, I think it just goes back to the access and the experience. It's
Hmm.
like, but today was definitely more about that. Quickly, grabbing a player or two. Like I said, we talked to Flowers today, so things like that. It was definitely a fun event today. More so, like I said, it was more of a media day type of vibe. Taking pictures and things
Hmm.
like that. By today, they've already done their work. So at this point, it's just a waiting game for tomorrow and see how they call it tomorrow.
Yeah, I like having the benefit of watching the practices and then going to watch the game to make sure that you see who can put on out there on tape what it is that they practice and show who are the game day players and who are the guys that just got who are bad in practice.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's true. So we'll see what happens tomorrow, man. We'll see. Are we gonna? What's next? The elephant in the room, or what?
And the elephant in the room is what's up next. I'm glad. So we have the retirement of the greatest quarterback of all time, old 7 rings himself, Tom Brady, after getting his head beat in and having the worst receiving core of his life, throwing to Mike Evans, who suddenly couldn't catch COVID in Wuhan, China in 2019. uh, along with all the injuries up front, he said, "You know what? It's over." That it only cost him his family. It only cost him all kinds of stuff to come in and play that last season, and my man was on the beach by himself. For all of the pictures that you see of Tom, all of the memories that you got of Tom, that man made an Instagram post on a beach in Florida at 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time by himself.
Until the 2023 NFL season gets underway, I still don't believe it. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, no insider access with Brady or anything like that. He's still, you know, Raiders brass has him on speed dial. You know, we're talking about Ziegler, McDaniels, the connections there. Like, there's, but I mean, I was talking to yesterday at the Raiders headquarters. I was actually talking to Bucky Brooks, and I
Mm-hmm.
asked him, "Hey, who do you like for the Raiders?" And he gave me this like, yeah. He started laughing, and he's like, "It's gonna depend on Brady first before I can answer that." He's like, "The first domino has to fall." So let's say the first domino has now fallen, right? So there you go. So now the conversation is going to switch to, are they going to still get a Patriots quarterback? Because let's put, one of the Patriots guys, Jimmy G, Brissett, or do they just roll with Stidham and draft a rookie? So that's pretty much where they're at. And I think it was kind of interesting. Brooks did say that this particular regime really likes a very particular. He didn't go into detail, but he's like, I'm gonna put it this way. He said they like a very particular skill set. They know what they're looking for. They're not just gonna get the best athlete or the best passer or the best this or the best. They have a very particular skill set that they're gonna be looking for. I know a lot of fans want C.J. Stroud. Other people are saying Bryce. They got, but to get Bryce, it's like you have to trade the house for him. It's what do you do then? Too many holes on the roster, man. In my personal opinion, to sort of just trade the house, quote unquote, for a quarterback. I get it, the potential, but there's just too many holes in this roster, man. And it's funny. One thing I did ask Brooks is like, and it was a fair point. Let's say Brady was, he gave the green light, he was going to join the Raiders. That quickly affects the draft board because it is of my opinion that if Brady says yes, then the first round, you got to go line, wouldn't you say? If you got
No,
to protect them. I mean, I would. That's I feel like you'd have to
you
go
don't.
line. You'd have to get Skoronski. Well, Skoronski would be the pick there if he's there, but that's just of my opinion. It's like I know obviously everybody wants defense too, but there you go. So now the first domino has fallen.
No, absolutely. And I was going to say the only reason why I would disagree with you is because you're not protecting Brady with a rookie. You're bringing in an established veteran that he feels comfortable with, especially up the middle. The offensive line continues to be a magnetic force for criticism, and they need so much improvement. Yet PFF had them finishing as the top 10 in terms of efficiency. They produced the top rusher in the league. They were, I believe, top. I think they were 11th overall in time to throw, with averaging over 3 seconds all season long. So when you look at it, it's like, okay, where do they need to get better? So I would say that right away they need to get better. They need to find a guard to go opposite of Dylan Parham. Dylan Parham was an absolute stud, and God bless him, if you were able to take away the boneheaded penalties, Jermaine Illuminor was rock solid. Probably even lightweight had a better year than Colt Miller. Quiet as kept. but everybody will say we got to get a whole new offensive line, and it's really not the case. They're really not that bad. But you went over a few points, and I just want to circle back and touch on a couple of them, as you said about believing that Brady will be retired at the beginning of the 2023 season. Well, Brett Welfare stealing fraud Favre retired 3 times before it was official. Came back like Chrysler, Michael Jackson, and all of that shit. It was crazy, but he did it.
Yeah, exactly. And you actually did make a great point right now that I did want to quickly touch upon. I'm not of the mind that they need to rebuild the offense or completely tear apart, rebuild the offense, whether it was going to be Brady or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's absolutely no need. There's definitely a bunch of bright spots. I just think right tackle is still not fixed by any stretch of the night. I know Jermaine Lamore that had a solid season, but he's not the long term answer by any means. They got
Mhm.
Thayer Munford, true, and he is. I mean, at being a seventh round pick, that was an absolute. That was a fine. That's a gem right there. Kudos to Ziegler on that. But no, they don't need to necessarily tear down the offensive line. I think it was just sort of. You made a great point. Brady was probably going to want one of his guys or a guy that established veteran. I just think the conversation was just more so bulk it up, kind of like when he first got to Tampa Bay and they got all
Mhm.
those the tackles. Sort of that approach maybe. But again, now that he is, let's say, quote unquote, retired, the conversation is going to definitely switch now for sure at what they do at number 7.
Or do they bring in a free agent? You brought up old Patriot quarterbacks. For me, the number I've been on record all off season so far, all 2 weeks of it, and I'm going to continue to harp on this all off season. They got to bring back Stiddy. That I fully believe that they will. I mean, they didn't pay him hardly anything. You could probably get him if you're gonna start him, he'll get around 10 million. If you're gonna bring him in as a high price backup, he should get 5. But in either case, you're saving money on him, and you're able to move forward with the guy. You got 2 quarterbacks on the roster who know the system. Chase Garbers has some experience, a full year under his belt. He didn't get any PT, but he got to practice and do all the other stuff. Um, and Jimmy G is the name that I keep hearing. Let me just say Jimmy G properly. That's what that when Jimmy G comes to mind, or when his name is spoken, that's what comes to mind. Just
Let me all right. Let me play a little bit of devil's advocate. Just 'cause, I mean, not by no stretch am I a Jimmy G fan or anything like that, but the conversation here was among a lot of people, without saying names and stuff, is that look, Jimmy G, first of all, he can't stay healthy.
no,
You know, playing behind, probably one of the best offensive lines, all that, like, but he just can't stay healthy. But what can't be argued, and I know it's going to merit a much deeper conversation, one that I'm sure we could have in the very near future. But the man wins. When he plays, he wins. The 49ers win, man. And look, I get it. That's a conversation that merits a lot more. Yeah, I get it. I see your face. I see your face. But can you? He wins, man. He wins. Now, I going back to your first point. I do think you have to bring him back. Like that's a no-brainer. It's not going to be expensive by any stretch. It
no,
shouldn't be. And it's like, I get it. The final game was what it was, but people were quick to forget they beat the best defense in the NFL, right? Or at least statistically speaking, like probably the number one defense in the league. He looked good. Now, did he make a lot of mistakes? Yeah, he did make a lot of mistakes too. But we saw things from him in one game that we probably hadn't seen from Carr in a long time. I dare
mhm,
say a few years. Maybe I think we
yeah,
again you
mhm,
spoke about that at length at one point privately, and it's a very fair observation, man. And the experience that he has with McDaniels, he's pretty much been with McDaniels his whole career. If you think about it, I mean, technically he has been, so that's his guy. It would be shocking if he's not a Raider. Whether he's QB1, that's another conversation I'm sure we'll have. But it makes zero sense for him not to be on the Raiders next year. If that makes any sense. But then the question becomes, okay, well, do you just roll with him and hand him the job, or do you still bring in one of those guys, one of the whether it's G or Brissett or another guy, and create a quarterback competition because obviously a lot of Raider fans out there probably aren't going to be too excited about the prospect of Stidham uh, being being sort of just anointed the starter, already. So, but me and you, we know that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either, right? So it's just one of
no.
those things. But it depends. But it depends too what they're going to do in the draft. Again, it goes back to that too.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up because I was looking at these quarterbacks and I had to put
Mm-hmm.
on my scout hat and get out of my feelings and go. And I went through these. So I'll give you some names and you tell me what you think about these names, and then I'll tell you what I've got written down. We'll start off with Anthony Richardson.
Underrated. underrated. I think people are harping on his flaws. You can go on Twitter and just look at all the people that are just like ripping him apart, but yet he is probably one of the better quarterback prospects this year. But there's a lot of just what's the word I'm looking for here? Sort of just I can't. The word escapes me right now that people are using to describe him, but
Raw.
AR-15. But AR-15, yeah. But he, I mean, I put it this way: from a fan's perspective, I wouldn't be upset if the Raiders picked him. That's a solid pickup right there. Now it's going to depend too. To be fair, I don't think he's a first round quarterback. If that makes any sense, I don't, he's not. He's not
Hmm.
that guy either. He's not that guy. I'm sure another guy that you have on your list is Hooker, so that's not a first round pick either. But that's just what comes to mind. Raw, but
So
the
hold on.
potential is there.
Pause. Pause. Why isn't Hendon Hooker a first round draft pick?
I don't think he's a first round for the same reasons. His tape doesn't really stand out as far as like, okay, this guy is the guy that's going to carry your franchise from day one. That is not to say he can be an NFL starting quarterback, but we're talking about guys that are going to come in. I'm assuming because we're talking about the first round right now, but guys that are going to come in from day one. I don't think Richardson nor Hooker are the guys you're going to hand the ball to from day one. That's not to say they're not going to be an NFL starting quarterback. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference. They're raw. They're both projects in their own right. But I mean, from a fan's perspective, this is a fan, not an analyst talking. It would just be more so. I wouldn't be upset if either one of those guys got on the roster, but they're not first rounders. Not with the talent that's available in the first round. That's going to be available in the first round. That's just my opinion with those two guys. But I'm interested in hearing your thoughts because you actually did put that word in my mouth. Raw. That was one of the words I guess you could say to describe them. But I'm interested in seeing what you think about Richardson because I don't think I've asked you yet actually privately.
So Richardson, to me, Richardson looks like he's what they expected to get out of Cam Newton when he came, minus the jacked up shoulder. When I go back and I watch his highlight tape, the first thing that comes to mind immediately is the fact that 75% of them are runs. He's got arm strength. It's not that he can't throw, but the offensive scheme that they ran was not what they'll be running in Las Vegas, and it won't be conducive to. I'd have to see what he can look like with more talent around him. Florida finished 6-6, so when we talk about how great he is, I was like, they finished 6-6 and got beat by Kentucky.
Yeah.
Kentucky was not great by any stretch of the imagination. And I'd be the first to tell you I was dumping straight garbage on Will Levis, and I'm still not overly impressed. But I went back and watched him. So I've heard the arm talent is just incredible. I didn't see much of it, but I heard it was incredible, especially on intermediate throws. What I will say that I was impressed by was how quickly he makes it through his progressions and the pocket awareness and sliding in the pocket. Now, while the other guys that we're going to mention all run better than he does, look better in open field, are capable of scoring from any point on the field, said what he can do is he can sidestep a rush and it get to a point where he can basically change his launching point and still get the pass off. And it'll be an accurate ball. Like I said, he'll make his reads. I saw him take a couple snaps under center, which is a couple more snaps than I saw anybody else on my list do. But now for Hendon Hooker, to me, Hendon Hooker was a top three quarterback in this draft and should be drafted probably in the top 10. I believe that because he's making a rapid recovery and he plans to be running by March. If he can make it to, I wouldn't advise him to do anything in the combine, but if he can manage to get out there to a pro day and show that he's recovered enough and go through the motions, he's going to get back into the first round. He had
Yeah, yeah.
3,000 yards. Yeah,
If he shows out at at his pro day, yeah. I mean, we've seen sort of the value of the combine the last couple, 2 3 years, kind of. I mean, the combine is still a combine, but if he were to show out at a pro day, that's definitely it would be interesting. I'm gonna say that. I think that would be definitely the first word that comes to mind if he really does show out, and he is recovered. Because if you remember when all this draft coverage started back in October, all the way through December, uh, it was the injury concern, right? That was
Mhm.
the injury that was like, okay, he's a second round guy, he's a third round guy. I think most mocks, for example, not to sound redundant here, but for example, from like the Raider Ramble, a lot of the guys had Hooker in the third round. No earlier than the second round. But again, it was from the injury concern. But you did make a great point. If he has recovered and he's on the fast track to recovery, and he does have a great pro day in March, then the conversation is going to 180. At that point, that's for sure. That's a great point, Phil.
Yeah, because you got a quarterback. He's got to get the five. He's got to get the fifth year option. So he's got to be drafted in between 1 and 32 in
That's
order to
true.
get that.
Now, my question to you then becomes: if he does get back in the first round, should the Raiders draft him? Because that's a different conversation. I would, obviously, but I mean, I don't know, man. You know, whether it's asking for a perspective from a scout or an analyst or a fan, Raiders, I just don't see that happening. Even if he does have a great, I just can't see it happening. But I mean, these are Patriots guys. Ziegler, McDaniels, man. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, we could probably throw out the book, and it's like if he shows out, like you said, if he has a pro day, a great pro day, then it's like all of a sudden then it becomes the conversation. Okay, well, is he the guy? I can assure you that most people on Twitter would probably lose their minds if they go with Hooker in the first round, and not in a good way. That's just my opinion.
People are gonna go off and be crazy no matter what it is. But as we progressed through those guys, so we've got Richardson, we've got Hooker, we've got Levis. That brings me up to, and I'm purposely leaving off Bryce Young because I don't expect us to have any chance at Bryce Young.
Mm,
'Cause, I mean, I believe that it goes without saying that Bryce Young is QB1 in this draft.
mm. A lot of people feel Levis is QB1 though, man. I mean, I'm sure in the near future we can have a debate about that. But talking to a lot of people out here, they really do think Levis is QB1. I don't think he's QB1. I think that's oh man. Over Bryce Young,
That's the
I couldn't do it.
GWH right there. That's the GWH right there, Mario. It's the GWH.
But okay, but let's all right. But in all honesty, I, put it this way: I wouldn't be shocked if Levis is QB1, if that makes sense. Like all Bryce Young talk aside and stuff, it wouldn't shock me if he's QB1. If he were to end up going that route, whether it's the Texans or whoever takes him and within the top 2-3 picks. So that wouldn't exactly shock me. I think at this point, nothing should really shock us anymore.
No, it shouldn't. But so that brings us to and back to C.J. Stroud. And to me,
Okay.
my thing with C.J. Stroud, I see a lot of similarities to Carr. What I do see better what I do see better is how fast he gets rid of the football, how fast he makes his reads, and his timing. He makes incredible throws in the areas where you would think he's going to get the ball picked off because his throw is thrown at the correct time. If he's just a fraction of a second later on some of those throws, you're talking pick sixes going the other way. He stays within the offense, but the biggest problem that I had is that at first it was the mobility, but as I went back and I watched, he is eye fucking his receivers, staring them down. And a lot
Mm,
of that was Marvin Harrison.
mm, yeah.
I don't blame him. I'd have just waited for Marvin Harrison to get open too, but that could potentially be a problem because 1 to 2 is okay, 2 to 3 is not going down so tough, and and beyond 3 is not happening.
Staring down his receiver. Where have I heard that before? Sounds very familiar. And hey, look, me and you already agreed we're not going to talk about a particular player, so we won't go that route. But I agree with everything you said. To me, if he's there now, number 7, you, I get it. I get the red flags. I get sort of people saying, okay, we're just going to get another Derek Carr. At the same time, though, the release, that's the key. That the quick release, the intermediate throws. That's it. there's a lot of similarities between Carr. I get it. I get it. There's so naturally people are like, okay, you got rid of number 4 just to get a younger version, but that's really unfair to to Stroud for people who are saying that because he is his own player. He's not Derek Carr. The comparison is there. I get it. It has some validity to it, but he's not Derek Carr. At the same time, then the question will shift. Okay, well, if it is Stroud, then what about what's going to happen with the rest of the position? Where does that leave Stidham? Where does that leave the defense O line? Again, I think there's still a lot that we don't know. There's still a lot of unknowns. We still don't know what's going to happen with Derek Carr from a trading perspective too. We don't know if what are they going to get in return? What are they going to flip? They're not going to get 2 first-round picks from the Panthers, that's for sure. That's going to happen. I know Frank Reich is there. Supposedly he was going to, even though I think we kind of, this Raider Ramble kind of disproved that a little bit with our source, that was never true. The Colts did want Carr, but not for 2 first-round picks. There's no way that was going to happen. But anyways, what my point being is that if they get additional draft capital, how is this going to affect their desire to take a quarterback in the first round, even if CJ Stroud is there, So how do they feel about Stidham? Or who do they get? What if they end up getting? I know this is crazy. I know we'll touch about it, on a later episode. I'm sure later on in the future. But Aaron Rodgers,
I'm actually going to touch on this later on in this one, but since
okay,
you're here and you brought that up,
all right.
we can skip ahead to that because where are we at with Rodgers now that we're out of Brady? So one of the albatross hanging over Aaron Rodgers' head was his contract, but the $59 million that he's owed is a signing bonus, which can be prorated over 4 years and takes his cap hit down to a nice team-friendly $15 million a year. They sign him for the vet minimum or however little they can pay him. You're talking about a cap hit of potentially 15, $17 million a year, which you save money. You can pay Josh Jacobs. You can keep your offense intact and stack the defense. That's going to cost you a first and a second to get him out there. However, today we saw a cryptic little message IG post from Devontae Adams in silver and black catching back shoulder fades from one number 12 in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. And followed up swiftly by some reported rumors of Rodgers purchasing a home in Las Vegas. Now he's also purchased property in Tennessee, so who knows? You don't want to make too big a deal about that. But when Devontae Adams purchased property in Las Vegas, he suddenly ended up as a Raider. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but I can counter that with that easily. NFL players all the time buy property in Vegas. They buy property all over the country. Does that mean there's any validity to it? Of course there is, because all of a sudden, I think the fact that it happened within, I don't want to speak out of turn here. I haven't read any, I saw the social media chatter, but maybe you can correct me. Is it all verified that Aaron Rodgers did indeed
I Yeah,
that's
I haven't gone through public record to verify the sale
okay.
bill of sale.
Well, my thing was, okay, well, is it just a coincidence that all of a sudden that came up just within within the same day that Devontae drops an Instagram post, So there you go. Now it's like, okay, well, everybody knows Rodgers recently said that they still talk all the time. In fact, I do believe Rodgers said they speak on a weekly basis, if not daily, if I'm not mistaken. So clearly they're still tight. They're still friends. The fact that he went to the Raiders didn't affect that. Rodgers has always said that nothing changed. I believe it was on Pat McAfee where they asked him about that, and he said their relationship is still the same. They made a lot of history together. That was business, basically. Him coming to the Raiders has nothing to do with Rodgers. But I do find it interesting, whether you're an analyst or just a fan, that these two things kind of just pop up within the same day of each other. Obviously, people are going to run with it. Now you have all kinds of theories coming out. Raiders YouTube is running wild with it. I saw that just before I came in here. So is it just off-season fodder, or is there really more to it? I think that's the question. You know what I
Well,
mean?
he's on the move, and with Brady retiring, he's suddenly the top option at QB that's available out there. Nobody else has MVP credentials to their name. Excuse
No,
me, let me walk that back. Well, Lamar is not going to see free agency. If he's not a Baltimore Raven, it'll be because he got traded after the draft or right before it.
true. And if correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I've just been so deep in here with the Shrine Bowl. But was he not tagged today, or was that yesterday? They did tag him, right?
He can't. They can't tag him. They
So
can't. I
okay, all
don't
right,
believe that. I don't believe they can tag him until after the year started.
okay, okay.
Or right.
Yeah,
Or
I
right.
mean,
Yeah, they can't tag him until after the year started, but they can announce that they're going to do it.
I think that's what happened. I think it was either Schefter or Rappaport. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did that they were intending to do that, but either way, you're absolutely right. As far as like who's actually available, yeah, Rodgers suddenly becomes QB1. I think that's undeniable. That I don't think there's much of an argument there. Again, I think it also goes back to is Ziegler willing to give up prime draft capital second year in a row? Obviously, he killed it by giving away, well, not giving away, trading away a first and a second round pick for the best receiver in the NFL. That I mean, that trade was, it was what it was. But second, 2 years in a row, is he really going to give up uh, that type of capital again for a quarterback that, the MVP awards, Super Bowl, all that. But I think we can be honest with each other. He is on his last legs. How much time does he really have left? Mm, you gonna get another half a decade out of him? I don't think so. Even though,
You sick. That man is
uh,
25. So let me tell you about
uh,
what's going to happen. Let me tell you about what's going to happen. So for starters, the offensive system that he was running in Baltimore has already been disbanded. They got rid of Greg Roman because he did this. He's doing the same thing with Lamar Jackson that he did with Colin Kaepernick. Run him into the ground until he
oh no
can't
no
until he
no, I'm
can't
talking about
win.
Rodgers. I'm talking about
Oh, you talking about
Rodgers.
Rodgers?
Yeah,
Rodgers?
like it doesn't make sense. That's just my opinion, obviously. Spitting here, like 2 years in a row to give up prime draft capital. That's why I said like a quarterback on his last legs. Like how much more time are you really going to get out of Rodgers? But I mean, let's be honest here. I
From
get
what
it.
I
He
from
does.
what I
He
saw, he might have he you might get 2 years out of him.
okay, and he would probably kill it in indoor.
Yeah,
So
he
that's
kill it
another.
indoors.
Yeah, he kill it indoors. That's there's no denying. But again, I think it goes back to what me and you were talking about at the beginning of the show, which was the draft capital, and the holes on this roster. Especially on defense, and it's like
Hmm.
that's just prime picks, man. But again, we when the trade was announced for Devontae last year, I think most people were caught off guard. They were shocked. They didn't think that something like that could happen again. Who knows? It could happen 2 years in a row. This is Ziegler we're talking about here, after all.
Right, and it's the, it, the way that the league is constructed is basically if you're gonna win, you got to do it with a quarterback on a rookie salary or a quarterback who's not making a shit ton of money because when you're paying one guy 40, 50 plus $1 million, that it's eating up your cap because now you're looking at premium defenders. Uh, Brain fart. Roquan Smith just got $100 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of linebackers coming up who are all going to get cashed out. Aziz Al Shahir is coming up. Bobby Okoroki is coming up. T.J. Edwards. We got Tremaine Edmonds as a guy that I got my eye on. Devin Bush. LVE is actually being. Oh, the LVE. Did they cut the lights off on you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Uh, LVE is going to be a free agent this year, and there's
Mhm.
no and then you get to look at what's coming out in the draft. So they got options there, but they're going to have to pay a linebacker, and it's been a position that has been ignored for far too long. If they want to get better on defense, they need to get three premium linebackers. And
Yeah.
and I love Denzel Perriman, but they need to find a couple of guys better than him so that he doesn't have to be the focus of the defense.
No, it's true. I completely agree with all that. Who was the? Let me quiz you. Who was the last great Raiders inside linebacker?
Matt
Can you
Millen.
top it? I was gonna
Last
say
Pro
Bill.
Bowl
I
inside.
said the other day. I think you caught that. You were grilling me about. I said Bill Romanowski was the last great Raiders inside linebacker. And you said, "Hey, they won though. They won.
They
So I
won.
mean, they won. But I mean, but I totally
No,
agree
I
with
take
you.
that back. No, no. The last great one, you probably forgot Eric Barton.
Oh, true. My bad on that. Then talk about disrespect, huh? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
Eric Barton
That's
was
true.
a beast for the Raiders. Kirk Morrison was good too, but he wasn't as good as Eric Barton.
No, but that's not so much a slap to Morris or anything like that. He was who he was, but
But
I think we're here laughing, but I think it goes to show you how serious the situation is at the linebacker position too.
right.
So again, it just goes back to my point. Like, you're really gonna give up 2 years in a row valuable draft capital like that? I get it. It's Aaron Rodgers, and let's be honest, they probably would light it up for 2 years. I mean,
Hmm.
him and Devontae, they would light it up. But then now we're talking about long-term ramifications on the roster, and it's like trades like that. It's like, not to say Devontae wasn't worth it, but they probably could have had some real talent with those two, with that first and second round pick too. But at this point, it's sort of a moot point. They got a mute point. They got the best receiver in the league, so I guess it all kind of just worked out in the end.
I mean, and I know you're running short on time here, but when you look at the way the Raiders are constructed, they've got everything in place but the quarterback. And so if you can get a quarterback in that, let's say it may cost you a first and a second, and it may be not be ideal, but you've invested draft capital in your defensive line. As long as you continue to develop those guys, you can bring in some free agents to go to do that thing. But they've got a lot of mid to late round draft picks that they can use to focus on the defense. And while I definitely say that we need premium talent in on the
Mm-hmm.
defense, you got enough picks that you can if you draft well enough, you can still fill that out and then complement the rest of the defense with starters via free agency, solid starters, not breaking the bank, because you and I both
Mm-hmm.
know that to properly build a franchise, you do it through the draft. If you pay all those guys in free agency, you can be broke and losing. The same thing we've been doing for the last 30 years.
No, it's true. But then I think we did touch upon it just a few minutes ago, real briefly. It might also depend on what they do with Carr. And if they do end up flipping him for some draft picks, I don't think that he's going to go for a first round pick. I know
No.
we'll have a much deeper conversation for that. But just right here, real quick, spitballing. It's like, if you can flip him for, let's say, a second and a third, then maybe that gives you a little bit more flexibility as far as pulling it. But here's the thing, correct me if I'm wrong, the Packers still want two firsts for Rodgers, right? That's the thing.
But they may want it, but they if they get the two first, they're gonna have to pick up the contract, and
No,
that's the problem.
yeah,
Is that if you tell them that you're gonna pick up the contract, then you better be getting him for a first and a second, because I mean, like you
oh,
said, we're not talking about a 26-year-old quarterback in his prime. You're
yeah,
talking about, I'm taking 60 million off your books for a 39-year-old QB. You
39-year-old,
better be
yeah,
giving me the hookup.
pretty much
To,
a 40-year-old, yeah, by next
yeah,
year. So yeah, it's okay. That's true, very true.
but so that's where I am with that, all of that. But we've got plenty of time to sit back and kick this around. Real quick to touch on before we get out of here, touch on the latest with old number four. That's how he'll be referred to from now on. Um, it, it this stuff is all over the place. I've heard rumors the agent is sabotaging the deal, and the PR says he's open to it the same day that we're getting messages about Devontae sending towards Rodgers. It's all types of stuff going on, and so I'm gonna kick back and wait and see. Now, according to the CBA, if Carr does in fact, now that he made the Pro Bowl by how he did it, more power to him. But they're about to start taking Pro Bowl incentives out of contracts, because if Derek Carr made the Pro Bowl this year, then it really don't mean shit. But moving right along, um, if he gets hurt, playing flag football, which he ought to excel at because nobody's going to touch him. But if he is to get hurt, the Raiders are on the hook for his salary and all that guaranteed money. And so if he shows up to play, he's got to get cut before he takes the field.
That's true. And then it would pretty much negate a sort of the plan that whatever plan the Raiders had for him. I honestly I don't think he's going to get hurt. I would be surprised if he even plays all that much. To be honest, everybody here was talking about how this whole thing with Carr getting added to the Pro Bowl, it's going to make it a real media circus too. On
Mhm.
Saturday for the media availability, I would be. This is just my opinion. No, I'm not going to repeat what anybody said here, but I would be shocked if he is made available on Saturday. Just because of everything that's been going on here in Vegas. But at the same time, if he gets hurt, talk about throwing a monkey in the wrench, because then it's it just oh man. So I think now all of a sudden I think maybe just because I mean we are Raiders guys at the end of the day, but I think him getting added to this Pro Bowl now so all of a sudden makes the Pro Bowl very much a relevant event, as in God forbid he gets hurt. Now we're talking about a whole nother situation. So like I said, me and you, we are Raiders guys at the end of the day. This is what we do. But now all of a sudden the Pro Bowl is very much a relevant thing. We're gonna have to see what happens. So there you go.
No, for sure. So before we get out of here, tell these fine people you have an announcement for the people. Excuse me.
Oh, I have an announcement. I thought you had an announcement.
Oh, you had an announcement.
Yeah, look, for those of you who are not too familiar, I know this is the unfiltered truth, and I've always been a big supporter of you and Jonesy and what you guys do, man. From day one, you guys are uh, what you guys do for Raiders fans. I think sometimes just goes underappreciated, if that makes sense. So, but this is more so me and you. Like you were, for those of you who might not know, you were actually the very first writer that joined the Raider Ramble. You and I used to connect because I used to write for Just Blog Baby Fansided, and you would follow me and you'd ask for pointers, and you were just we just kind of just hit it off, I guess you could say, right? And then before you know it, I'm starting this free blog, Raiders blog, and you're like, well, hey, there's my in right there, and you were by officially you are the number 3 guy that joined the Raider Ramble historically, and
Right.
you've been hounding me now for years that the Raider Ramble needs a show. Now, what type of show, all that, we will get into that at another time. But I am very happy and proud to announce that you and me are gonna be teaming up within this month, February. It's officially February 1st, and we are gonna be launching the Raider Ramble podcast. Finally.
There it
and I
is.
think and I think more so than anything, man, I think it's very special for me because it is you, and it's you like I said, you go back to the beginning. A lot of good people have come and gone through the Ramble. A lot of them have gone on to bigger things, and God bless them. I'm very happy that they were able to use the platform for that. There's a lot of guys too that have been with us from the beginning. Ray Esporia is the name that comes to mind too. Guys that were, they've been with us since the start. But I think something just changed this past off season, and I'm like, you know what, this is it's the right time to do it. There's definitely a change as far as how people consume media,
Mhm.
Raiders content in particular, without sort of going into detail about who or what or all that. But I think the tide is changing. There's always going to be readership. There's always going to be room for people who love our articles and all that good stuff. But I think it's about damn time the Ramble catches up with the rest of the folks. I'll leave it at that.
There it is. There it is. All right, my man Hefe, it's been a blast. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We've gone through this little tidbit. Shout out to Jones, who's not with us. He's recovering from some illness, and working too hard is really what it's come down to. But he was unable to go to the Senior Bowl, and so we miss him out there. But he's going to get better, and he'll be on with us as soon as possible. Like Mario said, we got a new show coming out. We'll be working on the specifics, and we'll keep you posted. But it'll be out sometime. We'll have our pilot episode sometime this month. But hold on, let me get all of this stuff out. So I want to thank Everybody who get tuned in, watched it. Nobody's replacing Jones. Cool, Kev, shut up. this this is Jones's. This is our show. I
I
can't
could
have this
no,
show
no.
without Jones. I'm having another one. I've cut down all of my extracurriculars so I could just focus on the Unfiltered Truth and the Raider Ramble cast. So next season, all you it's going to be straight Raider content for me.
Yeah, look forward to it, buddy. We're gonna do some big things with that. I'm if me and you have done great things with our writing wise, I think being able to speak and speak freely and like really put our thoughts out there, yeah, look out, man. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be
Yeah,
big.
hey, the next time you walk into one of those press boxes and see the GM, he might be throwing something at you, bro. Just be careful.
And you know what? And it's one of those things, and like you said, there's just so much. Like for example, this past weekend, real quick, it would have been a great opportunity to get Ziegler. Can you imagine that? Things like that, you know. And it's like, I think I've learned now that we've had too many missed opportunities, and enough of that already. You know, let's do what we do, and the Raider Ramble, just like Unfiltered, you know, it started day one, and but the Ramble is definitely more of a, you know, obviously a writing platform, but I think we're at a point now, and we got to make the most of our opportunity. So let's do it. Like you said, enough is enough. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, with that being said, this is the end of the Unfiltered Truth. Please like, subscribe, tell a friend, come back, watch some more. And if you like, join the membership. I could always use some more memberships for some exclusive content and all types of. You might even get a chance to hop on the show with me one day. But for now, it's over. Thanks for coming.